Now, it's no surprise, unless it is because I never actually told you, my favorite perspective of all time in video games is first person. I mean, we all live day to day looking through this perspective, so obviously it's the most relatable. And yes, I relate to shooters on a regular, so whether it be horror games, adventure games, or shooter games, I tend to find myself the most intrigued by a game that features this perspective. And because I'm extremely good at segues, going back to shooters, this is the genre that I tend to enjoy playing the most. And for most of you who are unaware, I'm old, and I probably don't have very long left. No, that's an over-exaggeration. I'm turning 24 in almost a month, and despite my age being the same number of brain cells in a FIFA developer's head, I am no stranger when it comes to playing retro games. When I was old enough to ask my parents for permission to piss on my own, I was still playing one of my favorite consoles, the PS1. I wouldn't own a PS2 until 2017, I wouldn't own a PS3 until 2016, and I wouldn't own a PS4 until 2020. Let's just say I was always a little bit late to the party, as in everyone left and left me to clean up all the vomit. But with that lateness meant that I was able to fall in love with the games of this era. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, Metal Gear Solid, the original Tomb Raider. And when I wasn't being a filthy console peasant, I always remember being mesmerized by games that either my brother or people I knew played on their PCs. And one genre I always remember distinctly were first-person shooters. And let me tell you, the late 90s to early 2000s, easily the best year for first-person shooters. Quake, Star Wars Dark Forces 2, I talked about that. Sin, No One Lives Forever, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Kingpin Life of Crime, Half-Life, GoldenEye 64. Oh wait, that wasn't PC. Turok, and that's not even scraping the surface. And these will always be the type of games I'll have some of my most fond memories with. Now, memories come included with another word, nostalgia. And that's something we all feel from time to time. And nostalgia comes bundled with another word, exploitable profit. Yes, every now and again, people will recognize how much we all yearn for the good old days and will make things that either satiate our need for those days or outright exploit it. And let's just say shooters from this era have had their fair share of throwbacks. Wrath Aeon of Ruin, Project Warlock, Ion Fury, Dread Templar. These are just a few of the heavy hitters from what we now call this genre, boomer shooters. But one particular studio out of all of them have basically been the crown kings of these kinds of shooters. New Blood Interactive, an indie company that specializes in boomer shooters with their modern classics like Dusk, which if you people may remember, I actually did a video on this years ago when I was clearly at my funniest.
Excuse me, I'm going to be role-playing as a pest control agent. Excuse me, sir. We have a bit of a situation here on the farm. Say no more, my man.
We will not talk about these mistakes. Medieval, a shooter that's more relates to games like Heretic and Hexen, where aside from guns, we get to use magic. Gloomwood, which is more of a classic shooter take on stealth games from the era like Thief the Dark Project, and the one game of theirs that really took off and is the topic of today's video, wink wink, Ultrakill. Now, I've known about this game for quite a long time, from watching people's videos on it like G-Man and Jarek the Gaming Dragon, to actually editing a full video on it for Tirecast's channel, and for watching the Beak play it in a Discord call. I've had my fair share of exposure to this game, and after trying out a demo for it not too long ago, and thanks to you guys voting on it on my community post, I finally caved in and decided to give it a go. And what did I think? Either wait or skip to the end of the video to find out. Don't use that latter option because you'll miss the funny. So what exactly is Ultrakill? Well, it's a shooter. You nipple. Developed by RC Hakita Patala, Ultrakill aims to take a lot of inspiration from classic shooters, namely Quake, and emulate the speed and fluidity of the gameplay from other genre games like Devil May Cry. And if you think these two comparisons are a little bit too specific, then just type in devilmayquake.com in your browser and you'll be redirected to the game Steam page. Oh yeah, and the game isn't finished yet.
But I really want to play something that's dumb.
But despite that rather disappointing fact, Ultrakill itself is very well received by a lot of users, and I'm not even going to talk about the critics because their opinions means just as much as mine. Now, this video won't once again be a review, however I am able to talk about the game and what I liked about it as well as what I didn't. So much like having your IP address, I'll be able to have enough information so that I can use it whenever I sneak into your when the final game releases. So what is Ultrakill about? There once was a YouTuber called Tiredcast, and this YouTuber talked about the game story already. So for the sake of being a lazy sod with my thumb up my ass,
It is not comfortable.
I'll just send you lads over to him so he can tell you about it instead. Yes, I'm serious. It's a boomer shooter, so the story here is just as important as you going to the store to buy milk and forgetting to buy the milk.
No, it's not important.
Basically, like every shooter that needs a cool setting, you go to hell. And for some reason, people are going to hell that don't deserve it, which means you, as a cute little robot V1 that can absorb the blood of his enemies in order to regain health, not as cute as I thought, never mind, Anna, are sent there to find out what the hell is going on. Oh, and you commit genocide, I forgot to mention that. Now, yes, let me start off like this. What I can appreciate about this game is the fact that there is lore, and the lore itself can be read and learned as you go throughout the game. But for a strictly gameplay over story person like me, it's genuinely nice that you can just skip all of that and get to the reason you most likely bought the game in the first place. But still, there's actual books that you can find to learn about the lore, character entries before each stage that you can read to get some insight on the enemies that you face, and there are a few cutscenes scattered throughout the game that can fill you in on the game's events. I only counted 2, and they're only stills though with scrolling text. Now either I'm reading a very deep, intricate novel, or a PowerPoint presentation you did 30 minutes before an assignment was due. Now all jokes aside, for now, what have we got here in Ultrakill? Well, we have an ultra-fast boomer shooter that will most likely cause a real boomer to have a stroke. Also, side note here, if you notice that the game looks like a gore mod for Minecraft that was recorded with a cracked version of Bandicam on a Windows XP PC for some parts in this video, it isn't because of a Chinese capture card joke trademark, all rights reserved, but instead for the first half of the game, I just set my bitrate a little bit too low. Sorry about that. Actually, no, YouTube compresses this shit anyway, so it's just funnier to blame them. And as V1, you need to travel throughout each stage killing an assload of demons, which range from your typical cannon fodder, to enemies that have no problem returning fire, to enemies that are faster, more difficult to hit, to boingy enemies, to some special case enemies, like some that are covered in sand so that they don't bleed, meaning no health, to enemies that apparently need to be defeated a certain way, like these drones, to some enemies where you need to break a statue first before you're able to damage them. There's definitely a good variety that we're working with here, and couple that with the ass load you'll be facing at once, there also needs to be some thought put into these fights because of how fast enemies can wreck your shit if you aren't careful. Oh, and you even get some boss fights just for your troubles. Some of them actually return as normal enemies later on, so don't miss Andros and the Rock too much, you'll see them again soon. And after every part of the stage you beat, you're tallied on the time you finished it, the amount of kills you got, and the style, which is probably gained by this multiplier up here. It's hard to miss. It's right there. Also, it's Devil May Cry inspired, so that's the second game they based this shit off checked off. You get penalized like on the amount of times that you've died, and you even have a small mini challenge that does something. I don't know what it does, but I can tell you it might be something. I did well on one stage and my ranking spelled ass. And while we're on the topic of the stages, overall the levels are open and expansive, but just linear enough to the point where it's close to impossible to get lost, and they each have secret areas that give you these blue energy orbs that gives you a score boost, to red orbs that double your health, to yellow orbs that grant you the ability to dual wield all your weapons, or just flat out secret missions, like this one here, where you're put in pitch blackness with the only light source being if Sans had a bad day, and this fucking noodle limb monster that makes these noises that can chase you down faster than you can think. Oh, and thanks for quoting a title of a horror movie I found on a Winnie the Pooh VHS. Not traumatizing at all. I was 5 years old, piss off. Oh, and after finishing the stage, it just infinitely looped. Which basically means that I didn't finish the stage at all. How fucking lovely. I didn't think Ultrakill was a horror game, but I guess it is. More at 11. Back to the normal stages, they're all visually pleasing and nice to look at. You got the prologue, which is your dank, dingy, metally constructy, possibly needed tetany, shotty, environmenty. Then you get Limbo, where things look all lush and lovely before going to shit. You get Lust, which probably has my favorite color palette, and it just looks like the cover of a synthwave album. Gluttony, which looks like my last buffet binge. Greed, which is pretty to look at, but the constant yellow of the sand kinda started to hurt my eyes. Maybe it was because I was playing this while I was sleep deprived, but that's only an issue until the darker parts hit. Wrath, which takes a cooler approach to the colors, with it mainly being set in Assassin's Creed 4. And Heresy, which is red. And I will say that all these stages are well designed and do take advantage of all your movement capabilities and weapons. None of them feel samey, and some of them even spice up the gameplay with their own set pieces, like once again Greed, where in one section you need to light these torches in order to open up the doors, and then all that culminates into an arena battle where the light is constantly shifting, making it harder to know where the floor is, and that was pretty nice. Or in Wrath, where you get to explore the interior of the ship, and then later on the thing flips, then you get to go through the thing, except now it's upside down.
I'm very easy to please.
And other parts just suck a tad, like needing to break these breakers. That's the same word. In order to move over to the next part of the stage, or this minecart section where you just ride the thing to fetch 2 skulls to initiate the boss fight with King Minos. Oh shit, I suppose I need to talk about this too, right? Bosses that aren't just reused later on in the game are each pretty much a spectacle to battle. The Gabriel fight, the corpse of King Minos, and the Leviathan especially. There is a problem I have with some of these boss fights though, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But I will say that each of these fights do make use of all of your skills in combat. You just need to stay focused and you'll be fine. Hell, for some of them I figured out that it's best to sometimes go against the game's normal logic and just take things slowly. Learn all their patterns and try and get some distance so that you can play it safe. I found that doing that with both Gabriel fights and the Ferryman in Wrath to work that way the best. And accompanying all these stages are a stellar soundtrack. I couldn't hear it. Now here comes my biggest hot take. I didn't like the soundtrack as much as I thought it would. Yes, I will agree that it is good, and it fits with the game's overall speed and wackiness, but I seriously wasn't too big on the soundtrack, except for the song Divine Intervention, Gabriel's theme. I mean, just listen to this. But just like actual music taste, it's completely subjective, so if you like the soundtrack, then more power to you. The guns sound nicer though. Now let me talk about V1 for a bit. Besides being a mechanized leech, he's got some nifty skills at his disposal, like the ability to parry shots back at enemies with a punch, dashing midair, ground pounding the floor like an ass stomp from Mario, to a slide, which makes me glad that you're playing with a robot, because if a human had to slide with this sparks coming up, I don't think there'd be any skin left on your legs. And he can even wall jump like he's Mega Man X. And later on you even get a grappling hook to either grapple onto these floating orbs in each stage, or grab onto enemies, smaller ones getting pulled to you, or pulling yourself to larger ones to close the gap and get a guaranteed shot. Only problem with this though is if you don't have full health, the amount you need gets lower each time you use the grappling hook. Meaning that you can't exactly spam this thing to your heart's content, which is a tad sucky, but it's a good way to balance out the gameplay when each enemy that you grab with this is a guaranteed kill. And not only can V1 punch, he has hands, which he uses to hold the guns with. Each gun ticks off the shooter stereotype. You have a pistol, shotgun, machine gun, railgun, and rocket launcher. But keeping it with classic old school design, the guns have a secondary fire, but they also have a different secondary fires depending on which one you have unlocked and equipped, like having a charge shot for the pistol to turning into Sati from Paladins. For the shotgun, you normally have a grenade launcher, but you can unlock an attachment where you can charge your shots for 3 rounds, and each shot becomes more devastating the more you charge it. I'll get back to this gun later. Then we have the machine gun that has the homing rounds like the bullseye from Resistance, or you can fire an assload of bullets at once you overheat the gun for the other attachment. And the railgun is a railgun. It messes up enemies without consent, and I didn't even really look up what the other secondary fires were. They were too money. Alright, I lied because I bought one attachment, used it once, and never touched it again.
Yes, I do like wasting money. How could you tell?
And the rocket launcher, which allows you to freeze rockets into place and then unfreeze them to have all of them fire at once. This was pretty cool, I must admit. Now notice how I brought up the shotgun. Now despite shotguns being the best guns in all of shooter history, the shotgun in Ultrakill is so fucking overpowered. This game almost felt like a breeze to me thanks to it, and that's not nice. I needed to have the police called on me for waking up the neighbors because I got angry and this gun ruined that. And why is that? Well, it's time to call V1 the 2-pump chump, because when you have the pump charge enabled, which is the second enhancement for the shotgun, you just need to cock that bitch twice and it will wreck enemies in just a few shots. Couple that with your punch, and even later with your stronger punch, I'm convinced you found the game's cheat mode. And not only is it strong, your punch and your shotgun, of course, are both close range, meaning that you get enemies killed quickly and constantly get doused in blood, meaning you're always refilling your health. So I only ended up finding myself dying when I made careless mistakes and sleep deprivation. The reason why I assume that this is balanced though is, get this, your shotgun can also hurt you. It's like a relationship with the Souls game. You may love it very much, but it will always figure out a way to hurt you. Because a fully charged grenade launcher or level 3 pump will cause damage to you, but not enough that it will kill you, depending on how much health you have, of course. But in turn, it can also kill enemies with close to a single shot. But thankfully, if you're in a pinch, you can always cancel out these charges by either switching weapons or attachments. And do you think that normal enemies are the only enemies that easily get stomped on? Hell no, and I'm not making a pun on hell this time. Almost every single boss was a total pushover with this exact same strategy. The only exceptions being King Minos, the Hideous Mass, the Leviathan, and Gabriel. For King Minos, he wasn't exactly kissing your ass sensually at that distance, so getting blood wasn't exactly easy unless you hit his hands, which I wouldn't recommend if you can't dodge. The same goes for the Leviathan, but at the very least you can mount the thing like an ISO file you illegally downloaded. And the Hideous Mass, because its weak point was its tail, so the spot was a little bit more specific than just hitting him whatever you wanted to. And Gabriel, because he's just the Giga Chad of this game. Now, am I complaining about this? No, I still think that this was designed intentionally to be this devastating, because it's a huge risk and reward system. Do you risk constantly getting close to enemies to get your health back almost instantly, or do you risk your health to get a higher combo for that tally at the end of the stage, but also at the risk of hurting and possibly killing yourself if you're not careful? This, however, did stop being as effective later in the game, but still, you can see my footage. This was the strat I used for almost 98% of the game. And about me saying this game felt like a breeze, that is true, but I still ended up dying a shit ton. This isn't an easy game at the slightest, and the enemies and bosses will tell you to shit numerous amounts of times. But the things that mitigate this though is the fact that once you die, you basically immediately start again with no loading times, and the fact that deaths in this game will most likely be your own fault for not paying attention. This game is hard, but not bullshit. Everything is so well designed, from the bosses to the stages, it's kinda hard to accuse Ultrakill for this. Yeah, maybe there was a possibility that some of my deaths were the game's fault and not mine, but I have no way to confirm this, and you also gotta keep in mind that I've also been playing this game non-stop for the past 3 days while needing to work in between, and also trying to work around my fucking power and internet dying every 4 hours while needing to make this video, so maybe I was just being a bitter twat. But I should stress that I wasn't getting burnt out, if that means anything. So if I didn't need to make this video, every death would have probably felt like a slap in the wrist instead of a kick in the nuts. And after finishing the game totally legit and fair with no help whatsoever, okay, yes, I lied, I used the assist mode in the final fight with Gabriel, but I only did end up using this assist mode only at this boss fight and nowhere else during the game, so that goes to show how fun and fair the game's difficulty actually is. The only reason I mainly did this is because I was starting to run out of time to finish this game for the video, and after dealing the final blow to Gabriel, I just wanted to keep playing, which is what I did. See if I couldn't get any higher scores on each stage, find more of those hidden missions, and just re-experience the total excellence of this game again. Just probably not on a higher difficulty, because a kick in the nuts is fine, but a circumcision is going a little bit too far. Hell, like I said, I barely actually scratched the surface of this game, because look at all the other secret stages you can find. There's even this one hidden boss fight against this Minos Prime that is so hard, I'm not even gonna try to fight him. But that just also goes to show how much love went into making this game. And here's the big thing. Much like an assignment you procrastinated on, this game isn't finished yet. From what we've got so far, the game is still set to receive an Act 3 at some point, and from what I've played from these 2 acts already in this early access version, I am mega excited to see what this can have in store. To stuff like the new stages, possible new enemies, and even possibly new mechanics and weapons. This game's future is is bright, and for what we have even now, this game took me over 5 hours to finish, and that was just going through the game normally, and none of that felt like time wasted. And we're still gonna get more later down the line. Now, in contrast to the Modern Warfare 2 beta I played last week, this game has got so much more content, a lengthy campaign at the moment, fantastic gameplay, and all this for the low price of 150 Rand. And I need to emphasize, Rand. Steam rips off other countries, so you need to figure out how much it costs for you. Hello, so it's my obligatory camera section at the end of the video. It goes without saying, can I recommend Ultrakill? Well, fuck yes. The whole thing is there's so much love, passion, and content that went into making that game. It's insane to think that they're selling that thing for so little. And from what I've told you at the beginning of this video, this game is massively popular and has such a dedicated fan base to it already. And literally, it's one of the highest rated games of Steam. And after playing it myself, I 100% understand why that is the case. And with all that being said, I would first like to thank you guys all so much for all the support on last week's video. It was insanely fun to make, and I'm glad that you guys have been enjoying watching it. And I also have to say thank you guys so much, of course, for watching this video. So, if you guys liked the video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. Maybe let's try and hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year so that I can stop asking for that milestone. If you guys dislike the video, then maybe you must be part of the haters that are gonna come over from the Call of Duty video once you guys actually find it. But with all that being said, my name is John from the channel with the freakishly long name. Thank you guys once again for always watching, and I will see you all in the next video.